Passed on first reading. Okay, Resolution 1231, amending Section 2 of Resolution 1060, providing modifications to the availability section of the gas division's G11 rate schedule.
This really does relate to the gas interruptible transportation customers. I recognize Mark Walker to summarize the proposal that we have for this change.
Commissioners, KUB's natural gas rate schedules do include a schedule for interruptible transportation gas service. It is available to our largest commercial and industrial customers that have the desire to purchase their gas from a supplier other than KUB and have that gas delivered by the supplier to KUB city gate stations, and then KUB's role is simply to transport that gas on our system to the customer's facilities. And Resolution 1231 deals with a modification that we are proposing to make to the eligibility requirements for interruptible transportation gas service. And I'll go through that in a little bit more detail. First, I just wanted to provide a brief overview of the service itself, what's under the rate schedule, basically. We have 10 customers right now that use that have KUB transport their gas to them on an interruptible basis. And again, they are among our largest users. They represent large industrial manufacturing companies. They also represent most of the hospitals located in the area, but 10 total. Their annual usage in 2009 ranged from a low of 30,000 decatherms to a high of 500,000 decatherms. And to put that into perspective, those 10 customers combined represented over 14% of our total system sales for 2009. So again, the big users tend to like to have the transportation service. Why do they like that? Well, many of them have multiple locations, maybe different plant sites throughout the region, or parent companies with multiple locations, and it's simply more economic for them to deal with a single supplier as opposed to dealing with a host of different utilities for the gas commodity. So in that case, it's transported to us, and then we simply transport it to them on their system. Also, we mentioned that when it's transported to them, it is on the basis that it could be interrupted. But as long as that gas shows up at our city gate stations and the probability of interruption of us curtailing it is fairly low. There would have to be a capacity constraint on our own distribution system, and that simply does not occur very frequently. In fact, all the years we've had the transportation service, probably going back to the mid-1990s, I don't recall us having to curtail because of an issue on our own distribution system. In order to be eligible to receive service, again, I mentioned it had to be large users. You must use at least 25,000 decatherms of gas annually. To help put that in perspective, on maybe the coldest day of a winter, a moderate residential sized house would use maybe 1 decatherm. So again, large users. We also currently require all customers under the schedule to maintain 5 days of backup supply fuel in the event that there was an interruption. And then also they have to execute a transportation service agreement. But it is this second requirement that we want to talk to you today about modifying. Over the last several years, we've had some requests, conversations with a couple of our large industrial customers who use this rate schedule, asking that we consider removing the backup supply requirement for those customers that are industrial in nature, manufacturing in nature. One of the reasons they cite is that at their other locations, either in the region or in the nation, the utilities that offer transportation service don't have that backup supply requirement. It's only at our Knoxville plant that would have to do that, so why? And it really comes down to economics. They're looking at it from the sense of they're manufacturers, they're able, usually in shift work perhaps, they're able to respond quickly to requests to interrupt or curtail service. They would rather deal with the potential of that as opposed to have to maintain the backup supply equipment and consistently have maintenance on that and make sure it's in good working order. So it's really the economic decision there for them. They would rather accept the risk of, even though it is low, there'd be a low part of curtailment as opposed to having that service, backup service. So in response to this, we did a due diligence review. We went out and looked at transportation rate schedules of other gas distribution companies in the region, and sure enough discovered that majority of them do not have the backup supply requirement for customers that transport on their systems, transportation only, and provided they're industrial manufacturing type customers. And so with resolution 1231, that's what we're proposing to do, is to eliminate that backup supply requirement. If you are a large customer, which you have to have that to even qualify for the schedule, but also if you use gas primarily for industrial or process purposes, that is the key. Then the backup supply requirement would not be applicable to those. Of the 10 that we currently provide service to under this schedule, that would apply to 4 of those customers.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So if they must sign a contract, right, that they agree to, they may be interrupted. Is it put in the contract the length? Because you might say, for instance, I doubt that you could do that, but I could see them coming back. Let's say there was some weird explosion and you didn't get any gas to them for weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Then they could come around and, say, well, your contract never applied that. I mean, how do you?
Well, we have in our gas rules and regulations to deal with situations like that. If there was a catastrophe on the system, that there could be an interruption, not only of customers that pay an interruptible rate, but also firm customers, just because there's no way to get the gas to them.
Okay.
So we communicate that to our customers through the rules and regulations that stipulate that. These type of interruptions are more for just you're using a lot of gas and your capacity on your distribution system can't handle everything in the time of maybe a peak winter condition.
Of the 4 you're talking about, none of those are hospitals?
Of the 10 customers that we have on the schedule, 6 of them are hospitals, but that would not, this change would not apply to them.
I was going to say, we probably wouldn't want to do
Yeah,
that.
in talking about making this change, we wanted to make sure that customers that serve the public good, that are always going to be in consistent operation, we don't want to make this applicable to them. I believe for hospitals, though, there are other regulations, maybe state law, that require that they have a backup source of fuel or energy. Resolution 1231 does amend rate schedule G11, which is the interruptible transportation gas schedule, and it does make that modification that we talked about to the availability section. And since it's a rate schedule, it does require 2 readings, and today would be first. If approved today, it would be brought back to the board in September and then effective on October 1st. So I'll be happy to answer any other questions you might have.
So none of these people, these buyers, they never experienced any type of problem before, and that's why it's probably to their advantage to go with this process versus not going with it.
For them going out and purchasing gas from another supplier or having the gas delivered?
Having a problem of getting the gas to them. I mean, they never simply been that proper care.
Yes. Like I said, the probability of us interrupting is very low.
And I will comment that really the only reason for us to do this is to support our customers, and in particular economic development. If we're not competitive with plants, they're not going to locate here, and where people have multiple locations, they let us know sometimes where our processes aren't competitive. So this is a way of us helping them to be economically viable.
Well, that makes sense.
Other questions? We need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Visitor or public comments, anybody? Okay, Mr. Colby?
Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Cannell. Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson.
Aye.
Commissioner Simmons. Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Resolution 1231 is approved on first reading.
Okay, we will move into the President's report.